This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is your Did We All Miss Out on the Darnold Development Leader Fan Radio Network.
Okay.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes, 29 seconds past 3 o'clock Central Daylight Time. We welcome you back to a Thursday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a fairly warm, fairly moist Thursday afternoon here in October in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro, host of the program. Guardsy produces the show. And we are going till 6 today, is that correct?
6 o'clock.
It's a 3-hour tour, a very Gilligan's Island-like 3-hour tour today. Vikings programming will, of course, as is tradition, follow us. Power Pack broadcast for you start to finish. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It'll include at the bottom of this hour the redoubtable Sean Salisbury. And then Dr. Dan's inbox is scheduled to be opened at 4:30 today as well. The 5 o'clock hour will include perhaps some A-section stuff. Kessler, by the way, is still on vacation. That's why we've not had him on this week.
I haven't even heard from him.
I'm a little worried. Is he okay?
I don't know.
I hope he didn't try to pick a fight with the pontiff, because he was working on an audience in the Vatican. He wouldn't be that.
Well, he's fighting with everybody.
I know.
So I don't
that's
know.
what worries me.
I don't know. He could.
I just don't think it would be smart to pick a fight with the pontiff. I'm guessing security would be pretty tight, don't you think?
Yes.
Plus, he's our guy, right?
He's Midwest.
Well, yeah,
He's
exactly.
American.
That's what I mean. It's close enough for me. You're one of those Minnesotans who bristles at pretending Midwesterners, whether they come from the Chicago area or Minnesota, are all in the same big pot, aren't you? You're one of those. Big distinction.
A little bit.
Upper Midwest. No, we're not Midwest. We're not even doing Chicago. I didn't realize that.
So I'm looking at Kessy's Twitter, his ex. The last time he tweeted was September 29th.
Whoa,
and it was actually a response to me.
What's it?
So September 29th, that was Monday, I think.
Well, maybe he's doing the healthy thing. He's shutting it down for the sake of the vacation.
His earlier tweets, not only was he not shutting it down, he was so connected. So he's got...
You think he tweeted something that raised Freaky McFreak's ire, got him in trouble, sent him to the principal's office?
So he's tweeting from underneath the Pope's balcony. Then he writes, September 27th, are we the only ones, and I missed this, this is nice, are we the only ones watching the Fox 9 Gopher football pregame show at a sidewalk cafe in Rome? And there's Pierre, there's Ron, and there's me on his iPhone. That's very nice, getting ready for Gophers Rutgers. He's got the Coliseum.
No offense, but I would just have concentrated on Rome. I love you.
Well, you're not a fan.
No, that's true.
You're not a believer.
I'm not a super fan.
As Gerby would say.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I had tweeted that the news that Bad Bunny will be the halftime performer for the Super Bowl in Santa Clara.
Bad Bunny?
Bad Bunny.
Okay.
Yep. And I wrote, already been declared a great show by Pat Kessler. Because that's what he does, right? The second that it starts, he's got to let everybody know that he thinks the halftime show is the greatest.
Yeah.
And his response was, great, but not as great as Prince, the greatest halftime show. And that was 3 days ago.
And that's it?
And we haven't heard from him in 3 days. So I don't know. Maybe he's back. I don't know how long he was going.
We don't have very many kidnappings anymore, do we? Of American tourists in Italy?
I think we have more than you want to know.
Well, we had them back in the day. We used to. I think going back, there were a couple of Italian terror groups that I think did that pretty regularly, but I thought they were largely out of business. So we'll see. We'll see if...
So anyway, I haven't heard from him other than those tweets.
The other thing in the 5 o'clock hour, I have a number of questions for you in particular as it pertains to the simmering WNBA war between the players and, it appears, management, specifically the commissioner of the the Women's National Basketball Association. We'll save that for... I meant to get to some of it yesterday, but obviously it was a very full Power Pack program. I think we'll have some time to breathe in the 5 o'clock hour of the show. Thursday Night Football on the Fan tonight?
It is.
49ers at Rams. And your guy, Purdy's not going to start. It's Jones again.
Yeah, they don't have anybody
out of New England. Niners are 3-1. Rams are 3-1. Mm-hmm. I think the Niners are enjoying a very soft schedule, which has helped them a little bit as well. I don't know. Maybe I'm not crediting them enough. I don't recall who they've beaten in their 3 games, but that's the Thursday night matchup, which you can hear tonight on the Fan. The problem is I don't think I did a good enough job coming up with the proper alliteration. When I say Darnold development, I don't mean developments in the Darnold story. I mean like the Darnold real estate development, because we like doing that with quarterbacks. What would have been a better term to go with than development for Darnold as it pertains to real estate? Is there one that comes to mind?
I mean, what did we do last year? We did Darnold dwellings, I think.
Is that what you went with?
I'm pretty sure we did the dwellings.
The dwellings, okay.
I can't remember.
Well, I guess
though.
Development's not horrible.
Yeah.
And I bring it up because I'm curious if how many in our audience have seen the piece that's getting a lot of attention nationally and I assume locally in various spots by Mike Sando of The Athletic. Have you seen it or read it or heard about it?
I have not.
Here's the headline, because it's all about us. The story is all about us as in the Vikings. It's far too early to question the Vikings quarterback decision, but have you seen Sam Darnold?
Mm-hmm.
And Sando then sets it up with, the decision that the Vikings made, the direction they decided to go after last season, which started brilliantly, ended poorly. Last regular season game, disaster. First and only playoff game, close to a disaster as well. But he's got some research, some reportage in this piece that did, I have to say, get my attention. And he notes that, he's already noting that the Vikings have already lost nearly as many times in their first 4 games this season, twice as they did in the 2024 regular season, 3 times. You'll remember we were 14-3 last year, correct? We had 2 veteran quarterbacks on our roster last year. One was named Sam Darnold, the other Daniel Jones. He notes that they are playing the best ball of their careers for teams with 3-1 records. He notes that the Vikings are now starting Carson Wentz with McCarthy out, hurt, suffering an ankle injury. And he notes also McCarthy might one day develop into a top quarterback, but there is 0 evidence so far that he's capable of playing that way soon, which again would be fine, except this team went 14-3 last season, loaded up with aging veterans in free agency, and is spending, according to Over the Cap, a league high $345 million in cash this season. That's like 5 years worth of payroll for the Twins, I think. 5 or 6 years, but I digress. Vikings have the NFL's 9th oldest defense, or should say offense and defense, on a snap-weighted basis, even with McCarthy starting 2 games. So here's the nugget that got my attention. The 2024 Vikings were one of 97 teams since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger to win at least 80% of their regular season games. That's according to Pro Football Reference. We are one of 97 teams to win that often in the regular season. The 1998 Denver Broncos, who were 14-2, had to replace John Elway because he retired. 94 of the remaining 96 teams, 94 of the remaining 96 teams brought back, their starting quarterbacks in some capacity. There are 2 exceptions. And both times, the Minnesota Vikings are that team. You'll recall after the 13-3 season in 2017 from one Case Keenum.
Yeah.
We moved on. We didn't believe it. You could say we've been vindicated because he never started successfully any place after he left us. I will still argue with you that we had the infrastructure that might have made a second season of some level of success, maybe not 13-3, possible.
And just the vibes.
And we won a playoff game with him.
We did, the Minneapolis Miracle.
Have we won one since? We won one with Cousins, didn't we?
Yes, I had to think about it. In New Orleans. Yep.
The 1998 Vikings were also on that list of 97 teams. What did they do? They brought back Randall Cunningham after a 15-1 season. He started 6 games, and then he got benched for Life's Full of Slappies. Jeff George. Remember him? How can you forget Jeff George?
Never
will.
No one
can forget Jeff George. So, when you put it in that historical context, does it feel different? Now, he admits, too early to second guess. It's not over until it's over. But he points out you can play the history game a little bit and not necessarily feel any less squeamish about this. Dropping an affordable young quarterback onto a loaded roster brought quick success for Seattle with Russell Wilson in 2012. That year, Wilson beat out unproven fellow newcomer Matt Flynn, who'd come via the Packers, if you'll recall. But remember, Seattle was coming off a 7-9 season with Tavares Jackson, who, of course, had a minute or two with the Vikings as the starting quarterback. He notes the Vikings this year were in no such situation. In moving on from Darnold and going with McCarthy, they joined the 2016 Denver Broncos as the only team in the rookie wage scale era to tab a first-time starter in week 1 after winning at least 10 games the previous season. Those Broncos didn't have many great choices because Peyton Manning had retired. Denver let backup Brock Osweiler leave, which wound up looking like a wise decision. Traded up to draft somebody named Paxton Lynch.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't work out very well. Not ready to play early or, as it turned out, ever, only making 4 career starts. Darnold was far more productive for the Vikings last season than Osweiler ever was with Denver. That's what made Minnesota's decision to move on from him so fraught. Now, there's more history here, but I'm fascinated that I guess I didn't realize how – I knew it was rare. I didn't realize just how rare it is, and that it's when it has happened twice, we're the team who did it.
That's probably why it didn't faze us.
Maybe that's true.
Because we had that in our I know we talked about it, about the Keenum phenomenon, and we were ready to move on, and we obviously made Kirk the guy.
And we did not have a good year the first year with Kirk, right? We didn't make the playoffs. Right. Yeah. Here's the I don't know how you feel about anonymous quotes from league execs, but I'm going to give it to you.
I'm ready.
I thought it was absolutely crazy what they did, and I thought it was crazy when they did it. To take a quarterback, Darnold, who'd won that many games, and to go to JJ, who you don't know can play, I just don't get it. Here's a quote from O'Connell, KOC.
Did you see the game?
In what world do you go from wearing a life vest and learning how to swim to being thrown in the deep end in the middle of a 200-meter freestyle against Michael Phelps? The point there seems to be that you got to be careful. I mean, what the cliche from KOC is organizations fail young quarterbacks more often than young quarterbacks have failed organizations.
He loves to say that.
So the question is whether et tout brute, is that going to come back at any point to haunt him? Because coming off a 14-3 season, albeit as bad as it ended, you had, and all the moves you made in this offseason, you decided now's the time on JJ. You didn't blink an eye on Darnold. You didn't blink an eye on Daniel Jones either, right? Who I presume would have been cheaper than Darnold, correct?
Yes.
I don't remember what Darnold got.
Yep. Darnold, wasn't it like 3 for $100? I mean, it was the deal.
Was it that much?
Yeah, it was the deal that we were all kind of kicking around.
Right.
During the season, would you do it for him?
Well, and then you're back to, if you got a quarterback making that much money, how many of the free agency moves that we made on the defense to add to the defense, which, by the way, has not looked any better, what we've been able to do. So that's also got to be put in the equation. I don't want to get too far behind because we've got Salisbury at the bottom of the hour. I might ask him about this particular piece because it does interest me. Let's try to get some bonus bucks going.
Fan and 2 men and a junk truck. Want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. And the first keyword of the day, Thursday, is win. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword win. Comedians decide Hassan Minhaj and Ronnie Chang, they hate each other, and they're taking it public. You can catch Hassan hates Ronnie. Ronnie hates Hassan at the Orpheum Theater. Saturday, November 1st. Two comedy legends, one epic roast battle. Full details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
My memory often fails me. Maybe you will recall this. In the Mike Sando story we're referring to via The Athletic, laying out the history, the extraordinary nature of the Vikings making the offseason decisions that they did when it comes to bringing back or not bringing back a quarterback who led them, albeit a bad ending, to winning 80% of their games. He notes that the Vikings offered Daniel Jones $15 million a year.
Oh.
But he took $14 million from Indianapolis, presumably on the thinking that he could beat out Anthony Richardson easier than he could beat out McCarthy. He's certainly been validated there because he's the starter, off to a good start. Now, again, weirder things have happened than getting off to a 3-1 start and then coming back to the pack. I'm not ready to give Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes the MVP award, but off to a good start. I don't even remember that we offered him $15 million. And if it was that much, that's considerable. That almost sounds to me. Here's the question, though. When you offer him the $15 million, do you say to him, we're starting camp open. J.J. McCarthy, we've drafted because we believe in him, but we're going to have an open competition and you have as much opportunity to win that job in the preseason as J.J. McCarthy did. I don't think we did that.
No, and even if they did, he had to know
that the wheels were
was
greased.
Stacked against him, right? Because I don't remember the $15 million specifically, but I remember they obviously tried to sign him, and I knew that they offered him something.
Right.
And that's really good backup money. Didn't Darnold make 10 last year? It was something like that.
That's right. It was 10 million.
Right around there.
Right,
so it's more than him, obviously. So, but he saw it clearly that he had a better chance to beat out Anthony Richardson than he did J.J. McCarthy.
When the Vikings were winning with Darnold last season, I asked, this is the writer of this piece, asked a veteran coach to watch the Vikings offense in hopes of learning just how well Darnold was playing. The coach thought there was a big gap between Darnold's impressive 2024 stats and how well he was actually playing for Minnesota. We found relatively few high-level plays in the games we watched. That same coach could not believe he was watching the same quarterback when he flipped through the Seahawks offensive plays with Darnold this season. The whole thing was tier one, this coach said. No one we know is throwing better than that. No one we know is throwing better than that. He used to be jittery in there, the coach said. Now he stands in there and looks down the barrel. A couple times he jumped and threw like Aaron Rodgers does. He dropped to 3/4 delivery, end quote. Again, look, it's water under the bridge, as the cliche goes. It's just that things have gotten so messy so quickly, some because of performance in the case of J.J. McCarthy and some because of injury, right? And you feel like the season is kind of teetering. And I guess, again, I appreciate the research that Sando did here in sort of laying out. I knew it was rare. I guess I did not understand how rare it was that the Vikings did what they did. Now, knowing it's that rare, does it give you any, because let's be clear, neither one of us was saying horrific blunder. Can't let Darnold walk. Can't let Danny Dimes walk. I think for the money, and as we understood it on Darnold, that you sort of had to do what you had to do, right? But knowing that history, how unusual it is, and knowing that the only other time it happened was with Case Keenum, and that did not end well the next season, does it give you any more pause than it might have at the time when all of these important decisions were made?
Not really, no. I remember during the year, we talked about the bridge 2 to 3 year deal for Sam Darnold. We talked about, and I remember saying we would be, at least I was
in favor.
I would have been comfortable with it.
Yes.
I would have been fine with it. And then the last 2 weeks happened, and we really shifted. I certainly did, and said, man, because that was really bad, especially the Lions game, right? The Rams game, I think more of it had to do with the offensive line and the fact that he got hit 52 times in the first half. So much so the KOC, in very un-KOC-like fashion, came out and said, we got to be better in the middle. That's got to be our challenge here. But the Lions game, there were plenty of plays to be made in that first quarter,
Well, let me ask
second
you this
quarter,
question.
and he was not even close.
The Darnold deal, the year he played for us, right? That was 1 year, $10 million, was it not?
That's what I remember. Yeah, I'll look it up quick.
What if let's say we'd have given him 2 years, $20 million. He'd have taken it, right? Under the condition he was in. And if he was still playing that second year, in other words, the 2025 season.
So at the time,
on a $10 million deal, he's still quarterbacking here, right? Even with whatever you think about JJ, wouldn't you have to play that out?
Yeah.
And force JJ to sit another year if necessary? Or if he fades, if he follows up the terrible postseason performance by not so much early this season, then it's fairly easy to say, okay, we're going with the kid.
It would have been. And yes, it was a 1 year, $10 million deal with the Vikings, and he signed a 3 year, $110 with the Seahawks. So
3 years, $110.
About $33 a year.
That's good money.
Which was, remember, there was a time when we were thinking it might have to be $40 a year. We were talking about for Darnold.
Yes, yeah, right? You're right. Yeah.
And not just 3 years either. We were thinking it may have to be a bigger deal, and that's where I think a lot of the conversations went.
Let's make this a bottom of the hour pause. We'll get to some commentary on this particular juicy subject from Sean Salisbury, get into some other stuff as well, help preview Vikings Browns. Of course, Browns make a quarterback change as well. Our guy Shawnee is next. Thursday, just past 3:30. That means Sean Salisbury time, and indeed he joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. How have you been, sir?
I'm doing very well, Dan. Thank you.
I'm glad. I hope you really get a little bit of get your sleep sort of calibrated after the big red eye return from Hawaii a week ago. I got to ask you about something we just discussed the first segment of the program, and it's an interesting piece via The Athletic by, I think, Mike Sandoz, the guy who wrote it. And it attempts to go back and sort of revisit, in a historical sense, the Vikings' decision to move on past Darnold and, of course, Daniel Jones last year and to go with the kid. And you could say to a certain extent this is all moot because it's done. But I was fascinated by the history part of it. And he writes that the 2024 Vikings are one of 97 teams since the 1970 AFL-NFL merger to win at least 80% of their regular season games. And in 94 of those 97 cases, I should add quickly, John Elway retired, so obviously Denver had to move on from him. So leaving him out, 94 of the remaining 96 teams brought back their starting quarterbacks in some capacity. And the two exceptions are the Vikings this year and the Vikings in 2017, the Case Keenum year, when the Vikings went 13-3. And it lays out, I guess, it acknowledges the obvious that it's too early to know how it's going to end up going with J.J. McCarthy. But I guess I was surprised when I saw that stat that it was that what the Vikings ultimately chose to do was as rare as it ends up being. And I know you and I talked about it a lot through that whole process. And I think you were on board ultimately with their decision based on the Darnold price tag. But does that surprise you that it was that rare? And it's just fascinating to me that it's your former club, the Vikings, are the teams that this is the same franchise that did it twice.
Yeah, Dan, and it's the thing is, too, I mean, think about how they played last year. If you remember last year, and when you make a decision, hell, if they, my thing was if they loved McCarthy that much, okay, I get it. But you and I had talked. I said what I would do is franchise him.
Yeah,
I would have franchised Sam Darnold, and because if that's, and when we say the price tag, and he ended up making what's he making, about 30, 35
in that range?
Seattle?
Yep.
Yeah, and the Tuas and those guys are making $20 million more than that. And so, and Kevin's been known as a, if you call him the whisperer or a guru, a guy who finds a way to get the most out of him and does things that fit their skill set. And he revitalized Darnold's career. And it wasn't just a 2-game wonder. Sam, for the most part, until the last 2 games, played good. Now, the key is, what if he'd have kicked ass in those last two games? What would have happened?
Right. That's the question.
Then wonder, but hindsight. But, for me, you franchise him, and, the 1 year deal would have paid him probably even more than that for the 1 year,
Yes.
but no signing. Let's go long term. But, Danny, and you and I had talked, the way he was playing, what was the rush? Now, we all look back and say, and we're at a time when we're so instant gratification, coming off a team that won that many games, was that close, a play or two, and a quarterback did in the last two games. He ran into a good Detroit team, and in the playoffs, and didn't play well. But what was the rush? Especially now, if you saw a lot of body of evidence with McCarthy, and I still think he's going to be a hell of a player. But since we're going back and hindsight, and let's hindsight it, is what was the rush for a guy coming off an injury where he didn't get a snap in the regular season? So with that in mind, I can understand if you had him and we'd seen him part-time, right. Sam missed a couple games, the guy was lights out, and you say, I think he's going to be ready next year. But with a team that's built like this, the one weakness, or at least the one glaring, if you want to call it perception, was going into this year, was the quarterback.
Yes, no question.
And you got rid of all your experience. You brought Carson Wentz in, but you got, for a guy who hadn't seen a snap, who doesn't come from a throwing program, who is a winner and has great potential. But why? What was the rush? And then going back to Darnold, you franchise him, and you and I talked about, let's see if he can do it again. Mm-hmm. And if he can do it again, then you revisit the long-term deal, or do you trade him, or whatever, however you do it, or franchise him after you franchise him, or do you say, okay, then you got, let's say they go to deep into the playoffs and Darnold's the Pro Bowler a second year. Then you got the decision of, well, do we Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love, keep him again? I mean, You have to go through those things. And my whole thing is, what was the rush? You put all that time and effort into getting a guy who wasn't expensive the year before or last year, and then for 15 or 20 extra million bucks, you decide to let him go. What would have been the problem had you kept him?
Well, it does.
Let's say he beats out now. I know if Sam's the backup at 30 million, I get it, or whatever it is. Yeah. But my thing for a Super Bowl caliber team, it is fascinating to think that how many people come out of a season with that many wins. We saw with the Mike stuff, what he said, but that go on and also commit to a guy who's never played it down.
Yeah.
Never played it down. Hell, we didn't even see that. Hell, when they had Aikman in Dallas, they went out and drafted Steve Walsh in the supplemental draft. First round. So my whole
St.
thing
Paul's
was,
yep.
and I right, exactly. And I fall into the loving the future of McCarthy, but with a roster like that, I think it took more guts to let him walk than it did to keep him. Now that we look at it, but hey, now they live with it and they got to go. And, Carson's played pretty well, but and Darnold's playing good in Seattle. All that work. And Darnold finally looked at the guy that everybody thought he was going to be when he came out of college. Mm-hmm. And so maybe it was Kevin who got him. And then what you did, you primed a guy for another team and got him ready. And you're hoping, see, one guy you knew played well. We're still hoping that J.J. McCarthy can ever be that guy, and hopefully he will.
Well, there's people are mad at me for quoting from this piece, which I just thought was an interesting historical perspective.
Very much so. I wouldn't have known it was that percentage was that high, Dan. I had no idea.
But they're saying, look, Sean, they're saying to me, hey, look, you see, we're 5 weeks in. You could just as easily, if at the 5 week mark, Darnold was struggling this year, you could turn it the same way and say, well, why did they do it? I get it. It's probably a little premature. But here's the reality, and I think this is how it works in this league. The unusual circumstance of the Vikings quarterback condition makes it inevitable that that's what KOC and this staff and this administration is going to face. And here's why. You had three other options that were at least in the hopper. Darnold, as expensive as that was going to be, and that's going to cost you some free agents that you otherwise probably couldn't have brought here. You had him. His team is 3-1, I believe. You had Daniel Jones on this roster. His team is 3-1 this so far. And you had the flirtation, no question it was going on, with Aaron Rodgers. And his team is, I think they're 3-1 too. I think the Steelers are as well after knocking off the Vikings. So this whole season is going to be a referendum that plays out that way, whether it's fair to anybody. You know that's how it works. If those were the other possibilities and McCarthy either struggles or is injured much of the season and they're just trying to, patch it up with Wentz, it's going to be lurking. That story angle is just going to be part of what the Vikings have to face.
And it'll have to be, Dan, because, and then we talk about not fair. Well, what is fair? The league, there's nothing fair about it. And that's okay. No, going in, if you're a football player and you're looking for fair or a coach, I would suggest you take 2 weeks off and quit and find a different workplace, because that's not how it works in a league. But a couple other things. And what makes you think, good gracious, they must have really, did they love JJ so much that they were willing to part with and or not sign any of them, especially knowing that, I'm a believer that if Kevin would have had Daniel Jones, that Daniel Jones would be like he's doing in
I think there's reason to believe that.
I believe the same with Sam, that Sam might have even gotten better and given you more because you uncovered what everybody thought they were. And if you remember that tree of like McVay, Shanahan, those two teams, they loved Sam Darnold. And Kevin they loved Sam Darnold coming out of college. Loved him. Shanahan loved him. Hence why he went to San Francisco too and was there. So there's all that. Yet here we are. So and I get why you love McCarthy and the temptation, but man, it's like, what would have even been wrong with letting him compete? But you go back to the money, Dan, it's very valid and viable. But let me ask you this. If they go this season and they don't go where they want to go, or if Darnold was here and they did, my point is, can you go farther with average quarterback play or decent? And it is premature, but we do that. We're instant gratification. We do it after 1 week. Who's the Super Bowl teams? We all do. But we're damn near, we're in October, so we're going to start to evaluate.
Right.
What do you have a better chance at doing in this league? Failing because of a bad quarterback, or failing because you just didn't get a couple extra bodies in free agency?
Yeah. No, that's,
I think, so if that guy under center's not there, you better have Baltimore's their defense back in the day when Ray was there.
Right.
You just got to have that guy that just plays good like Dilfer did at the right times and doesn't turn it over and protects it, and you run it and you play great defense and you win a Super Bowl. But normally this position, at the end of the year, you can look and say, well, offensive line wasn't good and quarterback. I'm talking about at any team. It'll come to fruition, say, finesse team, quarterback played poorly. Usually that's the way average, right? They didn't elevate. So listen, I'm pulling for JJ, and we're all, we get criticism for doing this and judging, but you write an article and we're reacting to it. Yeah. And we still have the question is, when Sam's played that well, and I do believe the last couple games did leave it, I don't want to say bitter, but left are we worried that this is going to creep in? It's, the confidence, all that. But listen, man, it's those are decisions that make or break franchises, seasons, or teams. And now we're in a hope phase now. We are. We're in a hope JJ comes back. You're in a hope that he's who we think he is, because we saw the guts in that fourth quarter of the first game, or that, that Carson can hold it down, because the Vikings are a good football team and we've seen it. So with that, boy, what a precious and fragile position it is. And don't we all know? When you have,
you have this many options that were at least available. Now, in fairness, we were reminded, I think, in this piece that the Vikings did offer Jones $15 million a year to stay. He ends up taking $14 million from the Colts, probably thinking he's got a better chance to win the job, and he's been vindicated already on that, than he would have here. So I think the Vikings may have at least attempted to keep Jones. The question is, should they have gone a little bit higher, or But if that goes back to, how committed are you that we've got to play JJ right now, as opposed to, all right, we're going to open up the competition and let this thing take its natural course?
And I can tell you this, Dave Cutcliffe still will swear by Daniel Jones. I talked to him before, who coached him at Duke, who coached the Mannings and all that. He still thinks Daniel Jones getting coach right's great, and it's bearing that fruit. And when you said Daniel Jones take less to go somewhere, I can guarantee you, he knew that if I'm here, with the love they have of all the guys they've turned down, JJ starting, and I look over at Indianapolis and that guy completes 48% of his passes. I'm going there to reach all my incentives to make $32 million or whatever he's going to make, as opposed to, the 14 he's making. But, let's listen. And if it turns out, we'll say, see, told you so. It's just that position, especially when you're young. It was a curious decision because he hadn't played, but it also should tell you how much love the organization and how Kevin feels about J.J. McCarthy, at least his future and what he's going to bring to the table, hopefully.
Maybe the current condition of the Vikings offensive line renders all this moot. I don't know. I'm curious to get your reaction to a very disappointing performance, I think, against the Steelers, which I thought is another one of those games where I thought the tale was told at the line of scrimmage. The Vikings defensive front was gashed early and often without the Steelers even having their number one running back, especially in the second half of the game. And then, the offensive line, there's injuries that are entering into this as well. I thought Wentz, actually, as battered as he was, held in pretty well. So, I don't know. Maybe we're worrying about the wrong position because they're clearly not getting, and they got injuries, defense at linebacker and offensive line, considerable injuries, including the center now having another concussion. But we're reminded of just how important stuff has to happen at the line of scrimmage, or else the rest of it doesn't really matter much.
Now, Dan, you heard me mention about the quarterback, and I will very much tell you, I think that's the next. Well, first of all, that helps in the growth of the position. It's a really hard position to play, no matter how good you are, when you can't set your feet or you're getting hit all the time. I've seen the collateral damage that C.J. Stroud has suffered through that's trying to get it back from the last year and a half. It is, and it was disappointing. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, when there's injuries, everybody has them, that you're hoping the guy behind him can step in and do the job and hold off the punishment, because the Vikings will never get where they want to go if the quarterback's getting battered. And it won't matter if it's JJ. He's got better feet as far as getting out. Right. It won't matter question. Because you don't win championships being a guy who escapes first and throws from the pocket second. You win him pocket guy first, and then the ability to escape and utilize the full bandwidth of a field. So it was disappointing. Now, we shouldn't sleep. The Steelers are starting to look like something, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I give them that. And the Vikings are making big plays, and but as it gets precious, and especially when the offensive line is not moving the line of scrimmage and they're playing on your side of the ball and battering your team, not only in the run game, but also getting after the quarterback, is they start to add up. And what happens, you become an chasing. You're not going to get where you want to go. And I don't care how good JJ or Carson play the rest of the year, if that group doesn't get better. I've seen the movie, man. Yeah. In Minnesota, we didn't have to deal with it because our guys were so good. But I'm talking about, you see it in the league every week. Teams that can't block simple protections, or key teams that just aren't physical. And Dan, you know what the craziest thing for me, and I look around the league now at a lot of average play by teams. We see sloppy play early, but there's a lot of average play offensively. Defenses are a lot of times tearing up offenses in the physical nature. Is when I watch it, I think, man, the depth from 1 to 2, and maybe that's all over the league with the money we pay the starters now. The depth when you go from 1 to 2 on a lot of teams, there's a major fall off.
Yep.
There's a major fall off. And if you don't secure the inside on a guy who's a pocket passer, they'll be running for their life always. They still hung in there and made some plays and had chances, but you can't turn it over. And Aaron Rodgers is looking closer to Aaron Rodgers. Pittsburgh's dangerous, especially with Baltimore's playing. And I'm going to tell you, it ain't going to get any easier defensively this week, Dan.
Yeah, that's it.
The Cleveland Browns are nasty.
Yep.
If their offense was 75% of their defense, the Cleveland Browns would be they'd be in first place with the Steelers. They would be. Their offense is just putrid, and their defense is like, eventually you get to the point you start to stare and say, are you guys going to pull your weight? Well, they're hoping with the movement of Dylan Gabriel, they get the same spark that the Giants got with
Dart.
With Jackson Dart last week.
Let's talk a little bit more about Gabriel. The Cleveland, as you mentioned, makes the change. Joe Flacco out and Dylan Gabriel in. He's one of those guys who I felt like he was in college like 12 years and played a bunch of games and was very successful. I have no idea, if he's going to be ready. If it's too much to ask, he be ready? How much of a, if any, of a threat do you think he might be in his first game?
I think, obviously you lose the Flacco intelligence and veteran stuff, but what you gain is a different energy. And I know they have so much respect for Joe, but Joe's limited on what the offense can do because of his legs. He just is. And I get it. Good gracious. I understand it, but he's, Joe's a guy that doesn't need much practice. He can still, if something were to happen, go back in the game, make a few throws for you and keep you alive. Here's what I believe I know. I don't know how the result's going to be in the game, but I do know this, and watching Gabriel a lot. And it reminds me of our guy, Jim McMahon, when Jim played. Jim's one of my best friends. He said, And when I went on in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago, or during the preseason, I guess it's been over a month, is they were talking about, well, he looks awful in practice, Sean. I went on with a couple of buddies of mine in Cleveland on their radio show. And I said, don't judge him there. I said, Dylan Gabriel's going to walk. You're going to walk and say he's not real fast, but he's got good feet. He's not the greatest athlete. He's small. The jersey's a little too big for him. And his practice, the ball comes off wobbly if everything's not perfect. What's it going to look like? Guy's a bad practice. I said, just in the preseason, I said, watch him play. I said, he's the guy that's a practice field, but a gamer. And that's how he's been in his career at Oregon. And, you saw all the speed of Oregon, but his toughness and grit was a big part of their success. And it does feel like he's been in college forever, but he's smart. And I guarantee he's put his nose to the grindstone with all the talk when the third guy's getting more pub than the first two guys. He's gone to work. Now, is the result, you're playing against a good Vikings team. Can you come up with a result? He's mentally sharp. I know that he will be into the game. And the spark, the reason why this is good for the Browns, Brian's going to give him some looks he's not used to. And, hey, listen, when people say is a rookie ready, no rookie I've ever watched. Now, not everybody nobody's Marino, but even Dan had to go through it because the next year you're like looking around saying, I didn't know anything as a rookie. I'm just pretty good talent like Marino because he can throw it. But no rookie's ever ready because you sit there and watch and you're like, dude, I'm sorry, but even if it's the SEC or when you were in the Pac-12 or the SEC or the Big Ten, it's a different level when you get there and you look around and say, oh, that is different because everybody's all the speed you had at Oregon you were playing against. So he'll be prepared mentally as much as he can. His grit, he's going to make some plays that a couple other guys that run wouldn't have made. So I think he's a good player. You're never going to be wowed by his practice, but you'd be wowed by his grind. And with Brian's looks, Flores' looks, when people say, well, it's the wrong one to send him to, he's got to travel to London and play against a blitzer. I think it's the other way. I think what he does, you go in there and say, man, you can be a hero without trying to be, but his legs when you blitz a guy like that and you miss, he's going to give you what Flacco couldn't. The second guy can run you down. With Gabriel, he's just fast enough. He's just strong enough with his arm, just moxie enough. And the truth is, even though it was on college, he has played a ton of football.
That's true.
Which is an advantage because reps, those were game reps with 11 dudes moving and running. So not a 7-on-7 league. So I actually think that you're going to see some spark and he'll make some plays that aren't there now. Whether the number is going to look like and can he do it for 4 quarters, who knows? But it is time. They needed to do it. And I would have done it this week too, even though it's the Minnesota Vikings, because you wouldn't have a chance if Joe can't move and they're not protecting the quarterback. It would not have been fun to watch if Brian's defense is doing what we want him to do, rushing the passer and the looks. So you can count that Gabriel's going to know more than most rookies do because of his experience. And you're going to see a guy that you're going to say, how does he keep making these plays? I've seen the movie on guys like him where you watch him practice, you're like, I played with David Craig too. I got in my rookie year, and I'm like, when I went to my first minicamp, I said, this dude can't play. And by the end of he threw for $1 million. By the end of the first practice, I think I told you that story. Yep. I came out of the practice and I thought, ain't nobody beating this cat out because when he's a gamer,
knows how to play. Yeah.
I feel like Dylan Gabriel is going to have an idea how to play, and if he does it right, you may not see the job given back to anybody the rest of the year. But because all he has to do is play smart, give him 3 touchdowns, you'll be in the game. Hell, Cleveland's defense will keep you in every game, and we'll see if that's the case this week.
One last quarterback question. Obviously, Wentz is starting this week. The offensive line is still, like I said, in tatters. They may be using somebody at center who's literally never played the position in an NFL game, in a regular season game. And so, the assumption is, okay, you got the bye week after this week. McCarthy will have more time to get healthy. And you gotta, if he's your guy, you gotta throw him out there, even if the next game is against the Eagles. It's here. But then there's a part of me that says, well, if the line is still messed up and still injury ravaged, is that too dangerous? Are you actually more likely to sacrifice Carson Wentz, if you want to call it that, by keeping him past the bye and having him start another game, win or lose, against Cleveland this Sunday?
My philosophy, if I was coaching it, I know as a player and looking at it, and we're sitting here talking media member, I'm thinking, how would I approach this? I guess as a quarterback, I'm like, screw that. I don't care who we're playing. If you're J.J. McCarthy, I'm going to play. I'm going to see good teams anyway. But
right.
But you've only seen 8 quarters of football or whatever, so less than that. for the most part. I think it's been so in a regular season game this year. This game does have something to do with it. If Carson Wentz goes out and lights it up, let's just say he does,
right,
and they win, and you get the bye week. You do have to ask your question if you're Kevin and in that staff meeting, say who gives us the best chance to win with a guy who should be a little rusty, even though if he's healthy. If he's 100% healthy, you ask, do we have a better chance to win against Philadelphia coming out of the bye week with Carson Wentz? And remember, don't discount what will it feel like for Carson Wentz against a team that discarded him a couple years ago after he struggled.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So those things can either work for you, where you're like, okay, this revenge is going to work good, or they can work against you. We see it both. Of oh my gosh, he doesn't like it. So I would, if he plays well, that is going to come into play. Now, Wentz goes out and you kind of flounder around, but you win or you lose. I would say 100% you're starting McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, Dan, you can say, well, man, are we throwing him to the Wolves?
You're
well,
right. Yeah.
We threw him to the Wolves without any work as a rookie and coming in his second year. So, and I got to give my team the best chance to win. And if he does that out of the bye week, you absolutely have to play him. But I'm keeping a close eye on this Wentz game and see his command, confidence with a new set, how he handles this. And if he plays great, you say, man, we could at least wait one more week. And you can usually, we want to see you give another week of practice with the ones, JJ, and then we'll go. But if McCarthy's going to give you the best chance to win in 2 weeks, I don't care who it's against, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Baltimore, it wouldn't matter to me, Buffalo, I'm playing him. But you're going to ask that question based on Carson Wentz's performance this week and J.J. McCarthy's health out of the bye week.
Would it be a good idea to, if you're a betting person, to take the under on the Vikings-Browns matchup? I'm looking at maybe 6-3, you know?
I was going to say, I'm taking the under, and it's 3.5 points, and I'm actually giving I'm taking the Browns because that hook matters to me.
Yeah.
So 3.5, 3. This feels like the safest under in the world, Dan. and Cleveland's hoping not.
Yeah.
And then it'll end up 41-38.
Yeah,
and Dylan Gabriel
that way
5 touchdowns. But I would definitely take the under, and I like the Browns to keep it within a field goal just because, you know, you're on foreign soil. You get a new guy, the energy. So we'll see what happens. But it'll still be a good game. May not be pretty. It's going to be an ugly one, I'd imagine, but it'll be fun to watch if you like fist fights, because that's what it's going to turn into, I would think.
Excellent work, as always, my friend. Thanks for the time. We'll chat next week.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Sean Salisbury with a great half hour of football analysis on a number of Vikings-related and quarterback-related subjects. Don't forget, Dr. Dan's inbox will be opened up in about 30 minutes as well. Don't go.